Okay, this is Peter O'Shea. I did my presentation on Charles Colson, who was an aide to Richard Nixon during the Watergate scandal. And the inspiring part of his story, and which is obviously why I picked him, is that he really took advantage of his opportunities, and he became a born again Christian, and also started a prison fellowship, which advocates for the rights of prisoners and really helps out their families. His early life, he was born on October 16th, 1931, in Boston, and it was really pretty simple family. His parents were Inez and Wendell Colson, and he really admired them, and kind of he credited them a lot with his turnaround. Definitely not his dark times in the Nixon administration, though. And you could really tell that he had a political acumen from his teenage years, really, because at age 13, he started a World War II fundraising campaign, and he actually raised enough money to buy the Army a new Jeep. So it was easy to tell that he was kind of the kind of person that wanted to get things done and knew how to get them done. And he also volunteered on a few campaigns throughout his teenage years, which also gave him valuable experience for the field that he would go into. And his schooling, he was schooled at Yale and Brown, which are obviously both top-notch schools, and that just kind of kindled his desire and his ability to get things done and to be a successful person. His family life, he was married in 1953. That marriage lasted for 9 years. It was a pretty rocky marriage. Um, he wasn't very happy in it, and however, it did produce three children. Their names were Wendell, Christian, and Emily. And luckily, even though it was a divorced marriage, he was able to keep a very good relationship with his children, and that lasted all the way up to his death, which was in 2012. And he was very happy about that he was able to keep that relationship. And in 1964, 1 or 2 years after the divorce, he was remarried to Patricia, who he really describes as the love of his life, and credits even more than his parents with his turnaround and his ability to become a better person. He thinks that none of it would have even been possible without her, and he makes sure that the reader knows that in his book Born Again, which I read for this presentation. From 1953 to 1955, he served in the U.S. Marine Corps and reached the rank of captain. But later on, he realized that he was really he really wasn't into the war, the whole war thing. He really interesting quote he has here is that the Holy Spirit, no respecter of rank or armor, pierced this soldier's tough exterior as no enemy bayonet could. So that was a nice quote, I thought, and it's pretty deep because the Holy Spirit really got to him later in his life, and he he realized that he had to drop his weapons and drop his the kind of the behavior that he had displayed during the Nixon administration, and and become a follower of Christ. And speaking of the Nixon administration, this was really the darkest time of his life, as he describes later. He joined it in January 1969. His official position title was Special Counsel to the President, and he dealt with a lot of different people. His ability to get things done that was shown in his early life, it was kind of twisted during this time, and he was very ruthless, and he even once said that he would run over his own grandma to get things done. So you can kind of tell the kind of person that he was during this time. He worked with organized labor groups, veterans, farmers, and really all of the lobbyist groups that had ties with the administration. So he was a very, very important part of what went on. And unfortunately, he was described by many as the evil genius of an evil administration, which kind of stemmed from his ruthlessness and ability to get things done, and that ability was kind of twisted in this time. So the Watergate scandal, everyone in America knows about this, and he had a role in conspiring to cover it up. Some background on the Watergate scandal. There was a decision made by the Nixon administration and kind of the whole Republican National Convention to spy on the Democrats in order to help them out in the next election. And they were caught, obviously, and they tried to cover it up. And Charles Colson he was unfortunately caught up in this scandal and indicted on March 1st, 1974, for conspiring to cover it up. Right before he was in fact arrested, his friend gave him the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, which kind of started him thinking about maybe living a Christian life because he realized what he had done was wrong, and he started to realize what that the lifestyle he was living was wrong. Um, and he read this book a lot actually in prison and started to ponder it. And he was sentenced to 1 to 3 years in federal prison by the judge for conspiring to cover up the Watergate scandal. So he served his time in Maxwell Prison. Only served 7 months before being released. Um, he felt called kind of to develop a prison ministry because of his time in Maxwell, and he also brought a lot of Christian values to the prisoners while he was there. He started a tradition of saying grace there, and it was really embraced immediately because the prisoners, although they may be hard on the outside, everyone is longing for God and a longing for love on the inside. Um, and his prison ministry has really been successful in the years since he started it. And he has been, well, was until his death, the leader in the campaign for prison reform because of his firsthand um, knowledge of the poor treatment of prisoners that can occur. And he saw that a lot at Maxwell. So his prison reform program is called the Prison Fellowship, and officially it is an outreach program to prisoners, ex-prisoners, and their families. And he saw the need for much more rehabilitation. He thinks that our prison system it's too much about punishment and not enough about rehabilitation. And I think that's a very common concern with a lot of people because of the rate at which prisoners are released and they come straight back into prison because there's not really a rehabilitation. Instead, they're just made angry by being punished 24/7. And he saw a huge problem with this, and he really pushed and advocated with his program, the Justice Fellowship, for more rehabilitation and more of like a humane treatment of prisoners. Another one of his calling cards, I guess you could say, was his transformation to evangelical Christianity, and he was very public about his views, and some of them were quite controversial, in fact. And he publicly opposed gay marriage, and also publicly opposed Darwinism. He was a creationist, and a lot of people doubted him for these views. And I don't necessarily agree with either of these views, um, but his conviction was there, which is really important. He believed in God, and he believed that God thought these things were right. And although these views might be maybe outdated or maybe a little bit intolerant, um, he's he's making a transformation, which is good to see. And he wrote a weekly column in Christianity Today, which was a magazine, and he talked about a lot of these issues in this column. He was awarded a lot of different things during his later years, many honorary doctorates. He was awarded the Templeton Prize, which is a prize for the betterment of religion, and which is a very prestigious prize. And he was lucky enough to have gotten that. And also the Salvation Army um, awarded him with their highest possible civilian award, for which is called the Others Award, and that was really just for his work in the prison fellowship and his push for more humane treatment of prisoners. So he died on April 21st, 2012. He was very happy with his life after prison and after the Nixon administration. He believed, and I believe, that he really truly turned his life around and made a difference for a lot of people in this world. He truly left an everlasting legacy with the prison fellowship and also his multiple advocacy projects. They continue to go strong today, and although he's not at the helm of them anymore, they're still pushing for very important issues that have to do with prison. And his strong Christian views also made a mark on many people, causing them to convert or at least to consider it. And he did turn off a lot of people with some of his more controversial Christian views, but he certainly made an impact in that regard. So I thought this quote was very interesting and fitting to end this presentation with. So Michael Cromartie he's the chair of the ethics committee, who obviously saw Charles Colson in the Nixon administration, as a ruthless person who would do anything to get something done for President Nixon. So this was his quote. He played political hardball for keeps. He was ruthless. He wanted to win at all costs, and he had a reputation as a person who wanted to win at all costs. I think if he's going to be remembered for anything, he's going to be remembered as a person who had a complete turnaround in his life. So that was a really great quotation, and he wasn't perfect. He wasn't even perfect after he converted. But he was a man who had conviction from the beginning of his life, and a man that I really respect and admire, and I'm glad I did my presentation on him. So thank you.